So, as many of you know, I do many things. And in those many things that I do, one of the things that I love the most and get the most inspiration from is collaborations. I've collaborated and had horrible collaborations and wonderful collaborations. And it's been one of the biggest places in my life that I've learned about myself. So over the last 3 years, I've been pivoting slowly, not really pivoting, incorporating more of this team's work in the work that I do. Because I work with people one-on-one, I hear that they struggle in relationship to others, and I became more and more curious. So I've started extending and expanding my offering a little bit. And so I've relaunched this offering, which has been alive for 3 years. It's called Conscious Collaborations. And today I want to give you an illustrated example of the kind of work that I do with people. A project is made up of a vision, a strategy, a structure, systems, products, all of those things. So I work with the practical of all of that, but then I also work with the relational element, which is often the part that is the most neglected. So an example of a relational kind of issue that often comes up in collaborations is this thing that I call shadow expectations and shadow transactions. So often when we go into business with someone, and depending on which industry you are in, it's often worse in places where people don't think it's necessary to sign contracts, like in the creative or in the spiritual or the holistic kind of industry. People think they can just muse and make an agreement, and then there's no kind of foundation to hold the business. So in those kind of sectors, this issue is fraught, and it's having an expectation from someone why you want to work with them without acknowledging it, because that expectation you have of that person is rooted in a perceived lack or shortcoming in yourself. So let me explain. I want to start a business, and I think it's necessary to have quite a big audience or a big network or have contacts with important people. So I notice in one of my friends or colleagues or people that work in the same field as I do, that they have those things that I think I don't have and that I need in order to be successful. So this is how teams work. We approach someone, right? But now because we have some kind of judgment around the fact that we don't have that team of people behind us already supporting us, we don't want to acknowledge this. So we approach them to be an equal partner, and we don't speak this thing we have an insecurity about. But secretly, we really want connection to their audience. So the business goes on. We create a bunch of shadow transactions, which I will explain just now. And then a restructure needs to take place. And restructuring in businesses are like really intense, difficult times, but they happen so often, and they can often be caused by things in personal life, like someone wants to have a baby, or someone wants to move the country, or someone wants to start a second business. And then we need to kind of look at what is working and what is not working, and it's calling for a restructure. And the way we navigate restructures are really telling of the longevity and the sustainability of the project as a whole. So a restructure needs to happen. Say this partner that has a big audience wants to move country, and you realize them moving country will mean that they'll lose their physical audience or their physical network, and they'll have to kind of reestablish that. So now as the one insecure about this audience that you don't have and they have, and this thing that you wanted them to bring into the business, but they now might be giving it up, starts to bring up tension and conflict, because this insecurity that's always been there is being brought to the surface. So in this scenario, there's kind of a lot of miscommunication and strange dynamics, and so you'll bring someone like me into it. And what I would want to discuss is this kind of like shadow role, shadow expectation that you had of the person, where this perceived lack in you started and comes from, and that's kind of the personal element of the work we would have to do together. And then coming together, speaking about the shadow transactions that happened. So because there was this perceived lack because of an insecurity, you would have probably, as the one not having the audience, made some kind of adjustment to prove your worth. Like, I'm going to do more of the admin of the business, or I'm going to do more of the legwork of the business because this other person is doing the audience, and I don't want them to know that I actually want them just for the audience. So now I'm like running around and doing like a lot of legwork. I literally did this in the business. It wasn't for audience, but I wanted someone else to do the admin and I wanted to do the creative thinking. So I was like, I'll just do all of the creative thinking and you do the admin, and I won't say anything about the kind of unbalance that I feel because I don't want to do the admin. And then when she wanted to leave the business, it brought this insecurity to the front, because now I had to deal with the fact that I have to face this insecurity about doing admin. And so what then sometimes happens also is a person starts with an initial shadow transaction that feels okay for the beginning of the business, but because it's not spoken, when they then start feeling that this is not okay anymore, it's really difficult to bring that up because it was never agreed on in the first place. It was kind of assumed or kind of spoken in between the lines or denied or not looked at all. So it can also be that the one that started initially doing all the admin, because they didn't have an audience, start to slowly build their audience. And at some point they start feeling, well, this is now feeling unfair because now I'm bringing equal amount of people to the business. So these are kind of things that cause some misalignment between people that work together and should be addressed, because that misalignment leads to a crossing of boundaries within yourself. It leads to not stating boundaries. It leads to not speaking about expectations and disappointments. It leads to resentment, and it leads to passive aggressiveness and all those kind of things that are the worst for business.